Hello, I'm Monique Mass. I moved to Jamaica in August 2019. I would like to share a little bit about my story with you and how I am here and my career journey as such. So when I finished high school, most South Africans go on a 2-year gap year to the UK in London, and they work and travel and see the world. I got involved with a business that was in door-to-door sales, and I absolutely loved the bustle, the hustle of living in London. I loved the friends that I met, and I loved the money that I was making, and the responsibility was all on me. I could work as much as I wanted or as little as I wanted, but inevitably I was really pushed by the fact that people didn't necessarily think that I could do it. People didn't think that I could carry bags and sell things because I'm a young 18-year-old girl from South Africa who didn't really, know much about the world at that time. Anyway, needless to say, I went out of my way to prove them all wrong. And I decided that business was the way forward for me. So in my second year, I decided that I wanted to do a degree, and I went to a university in the UK in London, the American International University, just to figure out if I wanted to get involved in this degree, because it's obviously a 3-year investment. And I wasn't 100% sure, because prior to that I actually wanted to be a physiotherapist. So I did a course at this university and I met some amazing people, and I decided, yes, absolutely, this was for me. So I went back to South Africa the following year. So I spent my 2 years in London, and I had some personal things, so I went back to South Africa, in which I started studying, and I was like, right, I'm going to do 3 years, I'm going to study, that's going to be my, my focus. Really excited about it. But within 6 months, I was offered a job with British American Tobacco, being in the consumer marketing department for a brand called Dunhill. So I got given a fancy car and an expense allowance, and I was like 20 years old, and I thought, this is wonderful. So I decided, no, I'm going to carry on doing my degree at the same time, and just kind of like cruise around and do my thing. So while I worked, I studied. And it just made perfect sense, and I had the freedom to do as I wanted. I was on a 3-year contract with BAT. After those 3 years, they invited me to work in the head office, but I was like, nah, that's not for me. It's too corporate, and I didn't feel like I wanted to just be another keg in this big wheel. I felt like I could do something different, and I wanted to see different things. So I landed up working in a jewelry company that manufactured gold jewelry. I was an international sales rep at this stage, and I went to Italy on conferences and big shows, but I absolutely hated it. I thought, this is so freaking boring. So within 6 months, I was like, nope, not for me. Thanks for coming, but no thank you. And off I went. And then I started working for Men's Health in media. And I was there for just over 2 years before my boyfriend at the time and I moved to Dubai. He got offered a job at a branding agency, and I got offered a marketing role with Bacardi Martini brands as their trade marketing and brand manager for the Gulf region, looking after their portfolio of brands. And I did that for 3 years, and then my husband and I got engaged at that time, and we thought, okay, cool, let's consider starting a family. And at the time I was like, oh, I'm getting a bit bored, and the structure of the organization was quite small. So he had his own creative agency at this time. That's another story, but there's an agency. So I said to him, okay, what I'll do is I'm going to resign from Bacardi, and I will help you fix some of the structures in your business, because obviously now I've come from quite a corporate background with all these big brands under my belt and big businesses that I had experienced with. So I was like, let me just come, sort some things out. I'll sign a contract. You have to sign a contract with me because I'm a fussy tart. And I want your partners to be completely on board, knowing exactly what's going on. So we just kind of took it from there. I signed a contract, and within a few months I fell pregnant, as things go. So my husband and I were running this business, and he had two partners. And then after the baby came, I still went to work, and eventually I said to him, listen, I just kind of feel like you and I are this business. The partners are going in different directions. So why don't we go and do this on our own? So he's like, oh, agency work, I'm not so sure. So I'm like, but listen, I see this gap in the market for Dubai, in market research, in marketing consulting. You know, there's a lot of agencies, but there's no actual consulting work where you can provide all these experiences that we have working for these amazing brands, doing these amazing things. Like there's this gap. So he was like, no, not for me. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. So I found an investor in Dubai. I wanted a mainland business because the mainland business allowed me to work with other free zone, different businesses, which is like a whole different kind of structure. So I had to find money because I didn't have $500,000 lying in the bank. So I did, and she was amazing. So her and I ran the business for 2 years. During this phase, my husband then started working with Campari. And his role was to look after the Africa and the Middle East, but they restructured and moved us back to Cape Town. But I kept my business in Dubai. So I would have to keep traveling back to Dubai. And then after a year, it just got pretty taxing and it becomes just too difficult to be too far removed. So I landed up closing the business. My daughter was then just under 2 and I was pregnant with my son. So now I'm landed up in South Africa, jobless, don't have my business, haven't worked in the country for 7 years, don't have much more of my contacts. So I found myself becoming a stay-at-home mom. And all of a sudden, this entire role, this career woman, this ambitious human got pulled right out from under me. And it came as a massive shock because I never ever considered that I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, ever. It was just not a part of my DNA at all. But it was such an amazing gift because it taught me so much about the values that I truly have inside of me. Because yes, I do value being ambitious and I do value having a career, but I also value family and I also value intimacy, and I believe that family can provide you with those types of intimacy that not many social other kind of structures can. So that was my journey into being a full-time mom. Eventually my son, sorry, I was just waiting. Eventually my son got a little bit bigger, and I decided, okay, my family are now ready, we've moved, my husband's traveling and he's in a thing, I've got a lot of support, so I think like, okay, I can start like reaching out to now my new contacts. And I started to consult marketing because that's my expertise. And I just did a whole bunch of different projects. I kind of landed up finding my niche on helping people create their brands. Previously I really worked on some phenomenal brands, so really understanding the DNA of a brand, what makes it tick, how to get it out into the public, how to share that knowledge with new businesses. So I kind of was really kind of focusing on that. And then because of my previous experience within alcohol, I started consulting with different distributors in South Africa. A lot of them are third-party distributors, and I did different functions for them. And eventually at some point I worked on the Moet Hennessy portfolio and I became one of the champagne brand managers for South Africa. And on Veuve Clicquot specifically, which was one of my biggest babies, it's one of the largest markets globally for them. So it was a huge privilege for me and I couldn't turn it down. It was like, okay, this is like dreams on dreams, but in such a beautiful way because it just came so organically. So I said, cool. So I put my consulting on the side, but it only came through because I had consulted on them previously. So it was just the way that it had worked. And then with, give another year and my husband got another relocation opportunity to move to Jamaica. So I was like, okay, here we go again. So we got on a plane and we came to check it out and we loved it. So we're like, cool, let's do it. And so we came here. In this process of being here, I also did a executive life coaching course. At the time, the true reason I did it was because I thought that it would really benefit my clients when I consult. So I can understand from a psyche point of view how human interactions work and motivations. And the course that I did is slightly different from the American traditional stuff that you see with a lot of models and stuff. This was a little bit more different. So I now have been able, in my experience here in Jamaica, learn to incorporate the two. I can help people achieve what they want to achieve at the pace that they need to achieve it. Whereas a consultant, I used to be able to, because I could see the vision of where a brand could go, and I can give you this beautiful presentation and it looks magnificent, and I would hand it over, and when I'm in the presentation it's like, oh, amazing, wow, fantastic, and then everyone would go home and go, oh my God, what do I do with this? It's too much, you know? So I'm like, okay, how do I now incorporate what I've learned and how to pace people at the levels that they need to go? So I feel like I've had an incredibly apt journey for who I am, because it's very much who I am in terms of going with the flow of life. Take an opportunity when you see it, go with the flow. When it works, it works. When it doesn't matter. Just kind of figure out along the way, and things come up and you do different things and you try different things, and then you land up where you are. As long as you within your own integrity and looking after yourself through that process, you can't really go wrong.